Hello guys, today we will be discussing cerebral palsy, how people get diagnosed with it, what it does to the body, and what we can potentially do as exercise science specialists to better the condition and help the person living with it. So I want to start by explaining what it is. In short, cerebral palsy is a physical disability that dramatically affects movement and posture. It is also an umbrella term that refers to a combination of other disorders. The term umbrella term just means that it can be a combination of multiple disorders that lead into just one generalized one. Since cerebral palsy is um, caused during birth, it can have many different effects on people. We will get into those a little bit later. But what does it do? It affects the body movement, muscle control, muscle coordination, muscle tone, reflexes, posture, and balance. And other conditions that eventually come up later on with the disease, or even early on, include visual, learning, hearing, speech uh, impairments, and also conditions like epilepsy and intellectual impairments. So, this is just a little statistics page of the disorder and where it is in the United States. It affects about 764,000 children and adults. So that's a lot of people. And as you can see, a majority of them are uh, children under the age of 18, 500,000. So you can see the life expectancy isn't that good for this disorder. And about 2 to 3 children out of every 1,000 births are diagnosed with cerebral palsy. Um, about 10,000 babies are born each year with developed cerebral palsy. About around 8,000, 10,000 babies and infants are diagnosed per year with cerebral palsy, and around 1,200 to 1,500 preschool age children are diagnosed each year as well. So the statistics are pretty high. I mean, the number is close to a million, and this is just in the United States alone. So it's a very relevant disease. The next slide is just a picture of like some children. As you can see, it's like very visual, and they can it's noticeable how they're impaired and they have difficulties with like just simple tasks like walking and participating in sports. Um, the medical symptoms are diagnosed at an early age because it starts off as a childhood disorder and is noticed right off the bat by uh things like dyspnea, just tight muscles that can't relax. So it just feels like you're constantly like flexed up. Contracture, which is joint constrainment, and they don't fully open up, so your joints are very immobile. And we're gonna talk about how to fix that as well in the exercise prescription with flexibility training. There's clonus, which is repeated rhythmic muscle spasms. It's kind of like your heartbeat, how it's rhythmic, but it's in terms of your muscles, which is an abnormal flexion of them. There's also pain and discomfort. We don't have much control of your body, pain is going to be a very huge thing that you experience. And abnormal walking patterns is also a huge symptom of this. And you can see there's also like if sometimes it affects both legs, sometimes just one side of your body, sometimes the entire body is affected, one arm. It really depends from person to person. Next slide, we continue the symptoms. Um, what are some indicators of cerebral palsy? Well, limping at an early age is a pretty big giveaway, especially if they don't have any injuries or anything necessarily wrong with the child. Spastic movements, which are uncontrollable, are also a pretty big giveaway. Um, Ataxic movements, which is poor coordination. So just eventually kids start to pick up coordination, simple tasks like catching a baseball, etc. But kids with cerebral palsy have a tough time doing that. Poor reflexes again, unsymmetrical posture, and poor balance. They're all just very obvious symptoms of the condition. So who's at risk? Well, according to the Australian Cerebral Palsy Register report, which was done in 2013, there are 4 groups that are at higher risks. Males, as you can see by the picture that I have at the bottom of the slideshow, about 57% of all cases are males. So males are genetically just more prone to the condition. Premature babies, since they don't have the same amount of time to develop as regular babies, they're usually born with muscular defects, nervous defects, and that's just like one of the precursors to cerebral palsy. Small babies, this is very similar to premature babies, but they're born on time, but they just so happen to be a much smaller mass, and It's 42% of all cases or of all cerebral palsy cases are children with low weight. And then twins, triplets, and higher multiple births, which is 11% of all cases. I mean, I can see how that's possible just because when there's twins and just more than one baby in the womb at once, they tend to fight for nutrition, and then one ends up usually a little bit less nourished than the other. Going on to the next slide. What are the causes? Well, unfortunately, not much is known about the disease, and the cause is yet to be determined. Some research points to a small genetic factor, but the correlation isn't like 100% there, since it shows that only about 1% of children that have cerebral palsy have a sibling that also has cerebral palsy as well. So you can't really say genetic 100%. According to the statistics, the main cause has to do with a birth defect while in the womb or during birth itself. Other ties that can lead to disease include damage to the brain during pregnancy, malnutrition, and strokes shortly after birth. The strokes one is a huge factor, especially babies that are born normal, because if they are born relatively normal and end up having a stroke, that will increase its chance to develop cerebral palsy later on in life, due to brain damage, of course. Next slide. So, what do we need to treat it? Well, unfortunately, it's not curable, but there are things we can do to lower the pain and ease the life for these children and later on young adults. So, some things that we can do is relieve physical pain and limitations, increase the self-independence, increase muscle definition and tone, increase range of motion for tendons and muscles, and increase self-esteem. The self-esteem one I would like to point out a lot because you gotta consider kids with cerebral palsy have a tough time fitting in with other kids due to the fact that they can't participate in like basic sports like soccer, basketball, and they do feel very self-conscious when they do because it's very noticeable that they have a defect. So self-esteem is something that we can work on through muscle toning exercise, muscle strengthening, and just cardio so we can get them playing with other kids. Things that we can't really help with but still need to be tackled are speech therapy, massage therapy, surgery. Speech therapy in particular, not only does it involve like talking, but it also involves like eating, breathing, because spastic motions in the throat do lead to choking, which is one of the higher reasons why people with cerebral palsy die. So the throat itself needs to be strengthened, and the nervous system as well needs to be like made to work properly so they can communicate better and they don't end up choking or struggling to breathe. In rare cases, brain surgery might be an option just to reduce strokes. Massage therapy obviously is used to relax the kids and make their muscles more just relaxed. So that's where we come in. This is the FIT principle for cerebral palsy. As you can see, we should be doing cardiovascular activity 3 to 5 times a day. It's 3 to 5 times a week, sorry, not a day. And intensity should be 40 to 85%. The time, 20 to 40 minutes. So these numbers are much lower, but they're still very crucial. And it's very hard for these individuals to do tasks such as running due to like muscle weakness. But some types that they can tackle are stationary bikes, arm ergometers, walks, or wheelchairs. The arm ergometer is very important too, just to strengthen the upper body because most of these individuals have relatively weak upper bodies. As for muscle training, it should be done 2 sessions per week, and it depends on how hard they can go because once again, this condition varies from person to person. Some people have it more severe than others. Time, 1 to 3 sets of 8 to 12. It's more of a muscle toning exercise rather than muscle building, and they should be using free weights and weight machines, preferably weight machines due to the fact that they balance out the weight for you. Also, I'd like to point out that you should be incorporating 3 to 5 days of a week of stretching due to the fact that it will help stabilize their joints and just make them a little bit more limber so they're not constantly tensed up and like feeling pain. Once again, though, make sure you remember every condition varies because it's an umbrella term and it encompasses a lot of different conditions. So other recommendations, well, I would say band training is very important too because it gives them it trains their proprioception so they have more balance. It helps with the balance, which is very crucial, especially for later on in life. Aquatic exercises, since water is most places like YMCA's are required to have 2 pools, one of which is warmer. So during the warmer pools help loosen up the muscles, and aquatic exercises helps you get in the proper exercise you need. Medicine balls and other balance exercises, once again, balance is very important, and I feel like that's something they should be training with. So, as much as weight training is important, they should be tackling stuff that incorporates balance to help stabilize their muscles and increase proprioception. Reflex activities. This is some cerebral palsy individuals struggle a lot with reflexes. So something as simple as catching a ball, tennis ball, baseball, whatever, it'll help out with their reflexes. And something that's really important is seeking out group programs. So, like much facilities like the YMCA offer programs for individuals with cerebral palsy, so they can get together, play sports, talk to each other, communicate, and just feel more comfortable with their condition. So here's a little case study. We have a subject, Mila. She's 9. We're pretending this is taking place at a gym. So she passed the PARQ and has no exercise limitation conditions. She is taking antihypertensives due to previous strokes, so to prevent just blood clotting. So this isn't because of obesity or anything else. It's just primarily to prevent strokes that will damage her cerebral palsy even further. And she has no family history of cerebral palsy and does not exercise due to anxiety. So what I prescribed her was strength training 1 to 2 times a week, machines only, because once again she's a child and like we're gonna do high reps just so her muscles can familiarize with themselves with emotion. And I also did aerobic training 3 to 5 times a week. And by aerobic training, I primarily meant play therapy, which is pretty much having her play with other children with similar condition, or by herself, or with other kids in general. This gives her the proper cardio she needs to do, and also gives her a chance to like work on the self-esteem issues that she needs to tackle. And she can find play therapy through joining the YMCA or similar clubs. And finally, flexibility 3 to 5 times a week, which is long, static stretches focusing on breathing and meditation. This will help with her breathing patterns and also loosening up the joints and tense muscles. So this is everything. These are the resources I use. I use 2 books. The first one's the Cerebral Palsy, 2nd edition, and the next one is by Taylor, the Physiotherapy and Occupational Therapy for People with Cerebral Palsy. And then I use 2 websites that are very credible. And that's the conclusion of my speech.